It was people snooping around the house and the property. It was people just making really nasty remarks about the way I look. And the birds are totally worth it. And I did make them a promise, and I just bear that in mind all the time as I made those, when I took those birds on, I made a promise that I would look after them, and I have done to the best of my ability. And I went online, and it was already it was viral online all over, because it started on the Daily Mail. The Sun had already got hold of it. We'd like your comment on the story that's breaking in the Daily Mail about your sanctuary. Freak storm. And I think it was the first kind of freak storm that we'd had in the UK. We've had a few now since then. I've burnt through in the last year and a half trying to keep the sanctuary going with no money and no donations or anything really, because I haven't been able to really work with all the moves, and with no income. I've burnt through £65,000 in the last year. That's how much it's cost in like diesel and obviously I've had to sell the motorhome, I've had to sell my car, I've had to sell a lot of my belongings. Not that I really owned a lot, but I've had to sell a lot. Quite a sunny, mild day to hail and 65-mile-an-hour winds. It was horrendous. The whole aviary lifted because of the wind, and we lost, I think it was about 30 birds.
Welcome to a very special episode of the Plant Fueled podcast, where we take a departure from our usual topics to shine a light on an extraordinary individual and her feathered friends. I'm Callum, your host, and today I have the privilege of sitting down with my dear friend Susan Joyce, the compassionate soul behind Little Green Pigeon Sanctuary. This episode is all about Sue, her journey, her resilience, and the incredible challenges she has faced over the last few years in her mission to provide a safe haven for pigeons in need. From humble beginnings in Staffordshire, England, Sue's story has been anything but ordinary. We'll delve into the ups and downs of running the sanctuary, from being made homeless to navigating the complexities of moving the sanctuary not once, but twice to its current home in Wales. But Sue's journey hasn't been without its share of controversy and adversity. We'll discuss how she found herself thrust in the spotlight when the Daily Mail got involved, causing a storm of controversy that only strengthened Sue to do the right thing by her beloved pigeons. We also touch on challenges of dealing with trolls, inspectors, and others who have sought to make life difficult for Sue as she strives to provide a haven of love and compassion for these misunderstood birds. This episode is raw, unfiltered, and at times a bit unhinged, just like Sue herself. But if you know her, you'll know it's all part of her charm. I should mention in this episode it may contain explicit language and themes, so listeners' discretion is advised. Before we dive into Sue's story, I want to express my deepest gratitude to you, our listeners, for joining us on this journey. Your support means the world to me, and it's what drives to continue to share stories that inspire and educate, and challenges us to be better stewards of our planet and its inhabitants. So without further ado, let's strap in for a rollercoaster ride as we journey into the world of Sue Joyce and Little Green Pigeon. Get ready for a tale of love, resilience, and the power of one person's unwavering dedication to make a difference one pigeon at a time.
I normally do what I want.
I do love the fact that you are drinking out of a giant wine glass, and it isn't wine.
It's just right. It's fine. I actually meant, do you know what I'd meant to do? I meant to put some gin in it, and I just basically forgot. So, yeah. So it is just Ribena, but it's all right. It's not even Ribena, it's like, I don't know, whatever Tesco's pop is. I don't know.
Yeah, we don't get that over here. We don't even get Ribena over here.
You don't get diluting juice?
We do, but it doesn't taste right. It tastes a bit odd. It's real strong. Whereas what we have back home, like, your Robinsons or your kind of like even just your Tesco owns and stuff like that, they have a really nice flavour to them. Whereas the ones over here, they do not. No.
I make mine quite strong, but
see, I like mine quite strong, but yeah, it just doesn't have the same taste over here, and there's only like 3 flavours as well, and.
That's really weird. In a country that's generally hot, I know you have a winter, but generally hotter than here, you'd think you'd have more choice of diluting juice.
Oh, yeah.
What's the main thing that you drink there?
They just kind of drink water and beer.
I was just like, healthy bastards. And then when he said beer, I was like, oh, that's fair enough.
No, I think that's just kind of stereotype. It is a lot of water, and it's a lot of kind of like things like coconut water and a lot of coffee.
Oh, coffee. What? You know how I feel about coconut. Oh, in the bin. In the bin with banana. Oh, so there is. I don't know the name of it, but it's one of these like innocent type smoothie things. There is one that is coconut and banana and something else, and I have drunk that and actually liked it.
Oh, you're like a changed woman.
It's quite big. It's a little bit like spunk, but not quite. It's not quite the same. It doesn't taste too coconutty or too banana-y, so it's all right. Yeah, but coconuts, bananas, mushrooms still need to get in the bin.
Well, you did eat a banana the other day as well. I did see that.
Oh, it was the most rank. Yeah, but it was the most rank banana ever because it was so green. I tell you what it was. I was on the way back from the sanctuary to come home. It was like 7:45 at night. I hadn't eaten since stupid o'clock. And I was so hungry. And yeah, we're really skint at the moment. So I bought a little bit of shopping, but I haven't got like money to spend on like extras at the moment or anything, or you know. So I bought some fruit and whatever, and I was just like, oh, I'll have a banana. So I opened it while I was driving, and I was like, oh, this is weird. So I had to pull over to open it. That's how unripe it was. But I couldn't see how green it was because it was dark inside the truck, and I sort of shoved it in my face, and then I was just like, what? And it was like, so it didn't taste. You know, so my aversion to bananas, as you know, is that they have the consistency of a dog turd, and that's why I can't eat them. So it's just like that in your mouth. But this wasn't like that. I can't explain the experience. You've got to eat one to tell. It was like somebody had put a film of something all over my mouth. It was the most bizarre thing. So I just shoved it in quick. But it kept me going. It was all right, but it was absolutely foul. But I got some oat milk that I bought as well, so I just had to open the oat milk and drink it because it was absolutely disgusting. Saying some Welsh country lane with a rammy banana and it's absolutely horrible. Oh gosh, I've gone mad since I moved out here.
Yeah, there's been a lot of moving, hasn't there?
I am properly. I mean, you know, you've known me a while. I've never not got energy. I am absolutely knackered. I'm just done now. I am just done. Absolutely so exhausted. Like, so I was talking to my friend who runs a sanctuary, Duckingham Palace the other night. She's had similar, nothing like I've had in the last year, but sort of similar stuff. And she'd had a bad day the other day, so she'd done something, and it was quite traumatic. And so basically, she just said to me, "I feel like at the moment, like I'm swimming against the tide, and while I'm swimming against the tide, some fucker's pulling my legs down constantly." And I was just like, oh my God, that's just how I feel. That's exactly how I felt for like the last 5 months. She just absolutely hit the nail on the head. And I was like, yeah, that's exactly what it feels like. This year has just been horrible, absolutely horrible. And the conversation started, sorry, the pigeons are fighting. We've got some baby pigeons in the house. The conversation started because I was behind a motorhome, which was very similar to the one I was living in before I lost the sanctuary land. And I just looked at it and thought, why didn't I just... I'd got money in the bank at the time. Why didn't I just rehome all the pigeons that I'd got in the sanctuary and just live in the motorhome? I'd got enough money to keep me going without needing to earn anything for like 3 years living in a motorhome. It would have kept enough just to like tax them and insure it and put diesel in it. And I could have driven around to loads of sanctuaries and done loads of work. I could have done some vegan activism. I could have worked at festivals in the summer to get some pennies. I could have done that. And it was a moment of absolute and utter, like, stomach churning regret. I can't explain it any other way. I was completely overwhelmed. I was driving, obviously, because I was behind this motorhome and I had to pull the truck over because I wasn't upset. It was just this feeling of absolute regret. And I don't regret anything in life normally, but it was complete regret. And then, anyway, so I phoned my mate and she was just like, that's kind of what she said. And she said, look, you're similar to me and that's just how it feels. And she said, hang on a minute. You would never have forgiven yourself if you'd have given those birds away. Like, if you'd made a promise to them, you'd never have forgiven yourself. And I was like, yeah, I know. But then equally, I feel like I had the money. I could have given, if I'd have given those birds away to 4 sanctuaries, I could have given each sanctuary like £5,000 or £6,000. I had that money in the bank at the time. And now I've burnt through in the last year and a half trying to keep the sanctuary going with no money and no donations or anything really, because I haven't been able to really work with all the moves. And with no income, I've burnt through £65,000 in the last year. That's how much it's cost in like diesel and 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 obviously I've had to sell the motorhome, I've had to sell my car, I've had to sell a lot of my belongings. Not that I really owned a lot, but I've had to sell a lot of my personal stuff. I'm now £15,000 in debt. I'm in a rented house, thankfully. I'm not living in a caravan anymore. And I'm absolutely knackered. Some fucker said to me the other day, she was going on about militant vegans, and which I hate that word. I absolutely hate it. And then I can't remember where I'm going with this. She's doing some comedy about veganism, and she's a person that I don't personally believe does a lot to help the vegan cause. She just says she does, and I don't think she does. And I got really angry, really, really angry. I was like, I've literally given up everything for these birds. Like, I couldn't have done any more. And I don't think I'm particularly brilliant at looking after them. I've just sort of fallen into this. I've given up absolutely everything for these birds. So then when somebody sort of criticises something, it's just like, ugh. But I did have a proper moment the other day where I was like, what have I done? Like, what am I doing? I'm a 50-year-old woman, and like, it's insane what am I doing? But then equally, I have amazing people that I meet every day, and it's fantastic. And I know that when I go up there in the morning and see how happy they are, and they're so settled where they are now, it's worth it. But yeah, I did have a proper, it wasn't a meltdown, it was just like, it was a moment the other day, because I don't have proper meltdowns. But yeah, so that was a long-winded answer to your question. I can't remember what you said. Hey, I'm knackered, Kat. I'm absolutely knackered. Which is why this is really a not wine, because if I was on the wine, I'd be asleep. I'm not.
I don't actually remember if I asked the question, to be fair.
I think you said something, and I said I'm tired, and then I was explaining why I was tired, and I can't even remember anymore.
Yeah, to be fair, I think it's like, with everything that's gone on in the last kind of few years, that I think it's perfectly fine to have some sort of little kind of like miniature breakdown as such, or not even a breakdown, just have a moment. Right. I think that it's perfectly okay to just kind of, because what you've had in the last few years has been wild. Because obviously let's start from the beginning here. Like, okay. when I came over to you when you did the little festival.
The festival. Yeah.
You did a little festival.
It was good. Amazing.
Yeah, so we did the festival. I flew over. I did a talk on nutrition there, and we also had.
So we had Little Green V. She did a gig for us at the sanctuary. Neon She as well, who was so sweet. She did something. There was the yoga lady came, and there was the hypnotist guy, and then it was just me running around baking pies. So I remember about it. Baking pies. And then me and you got very, very drunk. That's kind of my memory of the festival.
There was a giant kind of cauldron of potatoes as well in the middle.
Oh, I'd forgotten about the potatoes. Ian was in charge of the potatoes. But yeah, we got this massive outdoor, like a huge barbecue, wasn't it? With about a million jacket potatoes. I just far too many. I'm a feeder, so I was just like, everyone must eat all the time. And yeah, so I got like a million. I think we had there were 80 people bought tickets, and I think 65 came. But I'd bought enough food for 120 people because I didn't know who would turn up at the door, sort of thing. And a few people did, to be fair. But like, my biggest fear with it was not having enough for everybody. So that was why I bought so much. Can you hear that? There was a lot of food. I know, yeah. There was a lot of food. And then I bought desserts as well. And then the local vegan cafe had done those, I can't remember what they were now, but like veg box things.
Like sandwich wraps things, yeah.
They were quite nice, weren't they? And they were really nice, actually, really nice people. And that was at Moddershall Oaks. That was at the local health centre. They just happened to have a vegan cafe, and they were really nice people that we'd got to know. So it was a really good day, wasn't it? It was brilliant. And we had the sunshine. It was beautiful. Absolutely beautiful.
It was set up so well as well, because you had like a teepee in the back. There was obviously the big tent, or two big tents. One for like obviously music, one, I'm not too sure what was going on there, but I was in there talking nutrition. I can't remember what the actual tent was for.
Market. So that was in case it rained. So I got that big market.
Oh, okay.
And I put hay, but like the pigeon bales in there. And they were like a big upside down plant pots and everything. Because I was trying to do it on a budget, so I didn't really spend a lot of the sanctuary money. I think it cost about £1,000 to put together. That was it. Because everyone, like yourself, was so generous and donated their time and everything for free. And we took about £3,000, £3,500, because there was a little shop in the garage as well. And then people had donated. And then people that, so literally that day we made nearly £3,000 just on the day. It was brilliant. It was absolutely amazing. So yeah, it was really, really good. And then after that, everything went to shit.
So that place you were in there, how long were you there for?
I was there for 6 years.
Okay, 6 years.
And it was meant to be long term. It was meant to be a very, very long term thing there, which is why we'd set up the sanctuary. So before that, I'd had a bird sanctuary, if you want to call it that, just like in my back garden. Which basically was what that place was, really. So there was a big house at the front, wasn't there, with a big garden, and then there was a quarter of an acre at the back, and that was where the sanctuary was. But it was kind of separate. It had like separate access and gates and whatever. And the idea was that would be where the sanctuary was going to be long term. So before that, I'd had for about 10 years before that, I'd looked after birds just literally in my house or wherever. But yeah, moving there was so that we could have that land for the sanctuary, and the idea was that it would be long term, but unfortunately the person who owned the land had an accident and had to sell the land, but they wouldn't sell me the land. I got enough money to buy the land, but they wouldn't sell me the land separately to the house. They sold everything, which was £700,000, which is just insane. And I was living in the motorhome on the land in the July. So yeah, because I wasn't living in the house anymore. And then when that land got sold, that's what ended up coming out to Wales. So, yeah.
Yeah, because there was I think I arrived the night before, and you kind of showed me around the sanctuary of pigeons, and it was I'd never seen so many pigeons in one place, apparently. To be fair, there's a lot. How many was there altogether? How many is there now?
So there were about 250. Which doesn't sound that much, but it's quite a lot. I don't know whether it doesn't sound much or whether I'm just insane, and because I've had more. There were about 250 at the time, and now we've got about 120 at the moment. There's a lot less because when I moved, some of them I knew. So for the benefit of anybody watching this, what happened was I lost the land, and then I was made homeless. And a lady out here offered me some land, and which was amazing. So by out here I mean West Wales. Moved out here, but it took 3 months to move everything because I had to do it on my own. So I had to sell my motorhome, buy a caravan because I couldn't get the motorhome onto the land. I had to sell my electric car and buy a truck. Pull the caravan up here and then move all the birds up here, which is the other reason I needed a truck and a horse trailer to bring everything up. So it took about 3 months to move altogether. I knew that basically on the day that I moved the birds, it was just 36 hours of me driving and no sleep, because I had to sort of drive to Staffordshire. I was over here the night before someone was looking after the birds. I had to drive to Staffordshire, which is a 4.5 hour drive. So I drove there, had to load all the birds up when it was dark, because it would be too stressful to do it when it was light for them, put them in boxes in the back of the truck and in the horse trailer, and then get up at 3 o'clock in the morning and drive back over to Wales and then let them out. So it was just so stressful that the 4.5, because I was pulling the trailer back, it took me 6 hours to get back here. So 3 a.m, I got back here about 9-10 in the morning, which is perfect time to let the birds out. And they didn't really care because they were just in the boxes and it was dark. And when it's dark, pigeons don't do a lot. But for me, knowing that all those birds were in the truck and in the horse box, it was just the most horrible journey, because I was just like, oh, if I get a puncture or if there's an accident. And I mean, I'm sure everybody that transports animals have the same thing, but it was just horrible. I was just, oh my gosh, So, and then obviously, so I got half the aviary here. So they were all squashed up, and then I had to go back to Staffordshire, and I was driving back. I was doing 3 days a week where I was driving back, doing the 4-hour drive, 6 hours with a horse box, 6 hours there, loading everything up for 6 hours and then driving 6 hours back. And then I'd have a day with the birds here in Wales, and then I'd do that again, and then have a day back here in Wales. And that just went on, and it just seemed to take forever. And I don't think it did, but it felt like forever. And the main problem at the time was it was when we were having the fuel crisis here. So diesel was at one point £2.10 a litre. So it was costing me £300 to get back at one point. And so some journeys were costing me like £450 just to go backwards and forwards. And I had to do that 17 times. So my money, the sanctuary money just went, and it wasn't even sanctuary money by then. This was my personal savings, which is why I'm broke now. So it just swallowed. It's absolutely just swallowed my money up. Which is where that regret comes from. But it'll be fine. It'll all be fine. And the birds are totally worth it. And I did make them a promise, and I just bear that in mind all the time as I made those, when I took those birds on, I made a promise that I would look after them, and I have done to the best of my ability. So anyway, but then I'd been out here for 5 months, and it wasn't ideal, the land that I was on, but it was all I'd got at the time. And there was a freak storm, and I think it was the first kind of freak storm that we'd had in the UK. We've had a few now since then, but it was the first freak storm. There was no, because obviously when you keep birds, you're always on like the Met Office on your phone, like looking at wind and that kind of thing, and wind and rain and whatever. And there was no mention of it. So Vegan Queen V, my friend Jen, she'd been over that day, and this was in April. Beautiful day. We'd been out. She's really woo woo, and she was trying to get me to eat some nettle soup. So I was like, okay. So we went out picking dandelions and nettles. That's how nice the weather was. I was in like a summer dress, she was in like shorts and no shoes, and like she was. We were walking up and down the country lanes in Wales, picking dandelions and nettles. We went back into the caravan. The dogs had a lovely walk, and we were cooking this soup. And we just both at one point went, got a bit windy, hasn't it? And we were like, oh, it's got a bit windy. You could feel it. It's a big caravan. You can feel it sort of, you can feel a caravan. Look, God, that has got windy. I'll just go and check on the birds, and and they're okay. And I went out and I was like, it's really windy. So we looked at the Met Office, and it was saying like windy. And we were like, oh, okay, it has said it's going to get a bit windy now, but okay. And within 2 hours, we'd gone from, there was a little bit of wind to 60 mile an hour winds. It just hit us. And because of where we were at the top, we were 900 feet above sea level, and against a hedge. So what was happening was the wind, it was a different direction than the wind ever came up there. So it had come in from a completely different direction, and it was lifting the caravan. That's a 3.5 ton hobby caravan, and it was lifting the front of that. The truck, you could see the truck moving, just there were trees coming down. It just within 3 hours went from quite a sunny mild day to hail and 65 mile an hour winds. It was horrendous. And that land was unsuitable because it was a track onto a woodland. And the idea was going to be that I was going to move all the birds into a woodland eventually. But because I'd only been there 5 months in the winter, I had to move in the winter. There was no way of moving them down there because couldn't get the equipment down the track to clear the trees. And what happened was, because you couldn't secure the aviaries properly, the whole aviary lifted because of the wind. And we lost, I think it was about 30 birds, sort of just disappeared. But it was horrible because you could see them like flying around, panicking because it was so windy, and they were just getting hit against trees. It was just absolutely horrendous. So Jen was with me. Some of the sheds had got tipped over. It was just horrible. So we just basically had to spend about 2.5 hours just going around in that storm, trying to pick up all the birds and put them in sheds, and then carry the sheds down this track. Like, it's ridiculous thinking about it now, what we did. And it was like really dangerous. Like, we were getting hit by stuff that was just flying up, like bits of people's roofs. We're just like flying across and like hitting us. We both got hit at one point in the face with something. I don't know what. There was just stuff everywhere. It's horrendous. And so we lost overnight. We lost about 30 birds, which we assumed were dead. And I was just, absolutely devastated. So I went online and was just like, if anybody can get here to help, because everyone I know was at least 4 hours away. I hadn't been here long enough to get to know. I'd only made a couple of friends. So my good friend Will, who's brilliant, he came over. Matt came up from Aylesbury. Like literally by 8 o'clock the next morning, there were about 15 people up to come in and had arrived on site. And it was a beautiful day the next day. Like nothing had happened at all. It was so warm and so sunny. Jenny, my beautiful friend Jenny Mason, who's like the pigeon queen, she came down from Safe Haven Sanctuary in Merseyside. She drove through the night in her van. She must have got up about 2 a.m. because she'd loaded the van and it had got like cat carriers and boxes and tarpaulin and medicine and everything we would need for injured birds. And thankfully, there was only 2 that needed any medication. And actually, we found all but 3 of them. We found all the birds. And everything was fine. But at the time, we didn't know that. But she turned up looking so glamorous. And then she was like, "Where's this wind then?" I was like, "Oh my God." I feel like an absolute fraud. But because of that, I got so much backlash. So what had basically happened is some silly cow that I'd had the bird off. I'd had some birds off her. She's a rehabilitator. So basically that means that she was looking after pigeons in her house. And she'd sent some birds over to me the week before to look after, to be looked after for life, basically, because she hasn't got an aviary. And 2 of her birds went missing, and they were 2 that were never found. And because of that, she screenshotted part of the video that I'd put up and said that I was neglecting the birds and I was leaving them out in a storm. It was just like a screenshot of a video, but it was like an inappropriate screenshot, if you know what I mean. As in, I'm not saying it wasn't a video that I took. It was but she screenshotted it and then said it was something else, and the absolute shitstorm went down on the internet. And what I find quite it's I can't think of the word now. It's horrible for the sanctuaries involved, but the similar thing has happened to a couple of sanctuaries since, including Surge. Surge Sanctuaries was hit by a storm of a similar nature, and nobody said anything about that, because now, unfortunately, out here, like out there and everywhere, these freak storms are just the norm now. And it wasn't that long ago, but that was the first one, I think, that had sort of happened, and certainly that I'd encountered, where it just came out of nowhere. And I had so much bad press for it. It was absolutely horrendous. And it's just amazing how even some of them were vegans, a lot of them weren't, but some of them were vegans that were sort of coming on with this horrendous rhetoric of like, "Oh, you abuse animals," and blah, 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 blah. It was just awful. And you just feel like, talk about kicking someone when they're down. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
also, what can you really do in a storm? Because that's something out of your kind of out of your power.
Yeah,
you can't do anything. You've set up a sanctuary that is for the best for the birds, and obviously without taking them all into your house, not knowing there's a storm, then there's no way of knowing this is going to happen. So
at the time I was homeless. So, let's say I was back in Staffordshire and I knew there was going to be a storm of that velocity. I could quite happily have got every single one in a cardboard box and put them in a garage. That would have been the safe thing to do. I was homeless. So people were saying, "Well, you shouldn't have birds if you're homeless." And I was like, "Oh my God, like, what am I meant to do? Like, what should I do then? Put all the birds to sleep? Is that the ethical thing to do?" Do you know what I mean? It's like, well, hang on, if that storm hadn't happened, and also the people that were criticising were the same people that had given me birds to look after. They were the same people. Nobody turned up to help. None of those people turned up to help. They were the same people that were criticising were ones that, and I don't know why they did it, but it was just really absolutely gobsmacking. But I'm just glad to see now it's happened to a couple of other sanctuaries. They're not having the same sort of shit thrown at them. So I don't know whether it's because I'm quite vocal on Tinterweb. I don't know what it is, but or maybe I'm too honest. Maybe I was too honest, and and a few people did get in touch and like, "Why did you show people the storm damage?" And I'm like, well, because people support this sanctuary and they need to know what's happened, and it's horrendous. But also because I needed help. I think had I been back in Staffordshire, I could have phoned friends. Well. Yeah, absolutely, and I'm all about that.
Because obviously these people are giving you birds, and obviously you want to be transparent of what's happened with these birds, or if there's something. Because I've seen stories where like you've had birds come in and there's only been a few days they've been alive still, and you've been very transparent, being like, these birds have died, due to whatever reason. So you're very transparent about what happens, and I think that's the best, especially if you're in a sanctuary where people are giving you birds, or you're looking after, or a lot of people are sponsoring you as well, so they want to know what's happening with birds.
Absolutely, exactly that. Yeah, these people are sponsoring £120 a year to sponsor a bird. It's really important that they know what's happened, and obviously that people aren't stupid. They know when they sponsor a bird. They know that not. Hello, sorry, I've got a dog asking for attention here. Hello, Nuggy dog. They know they're not sponsoring that bird. They know they're just donating money to a sanctuary to help the sanctuary keep going. So people aren't daft. They don't go like, right, well, I want a refund now, because the bird's died. They know it just goes on to help other birds. So but equally, I think because of that, you're totally right. There needs to be transparency. You're taking money off people. and they need to know. So then this whole bullshit started about I'm spending it on cars and I'm not really homeless. It's all a hoax. And it's just so weird the way that social media, and it's Facebook, it's not Instagram and it's not TikTok. It's always Facebook. If the shit goes down, it tends to always be Facebook. So I had this whole thing of like, that I'd spent it all on cars and I'd spent it all on this, and I can't keep quiet about that. So instead of being like, oh no, I didn't, what I actually did instead was just came out like I did years before with the Daily Mail and just did a load of bullshit posts. And so what people were doing was going on to to fund the sanctuary, as you know, we've got a shop and we've got a website. People were going on Trustpilot and slagging me off on Trustpilot, and that's not what Trustpilot's for. Trustpilot's there for products that I sell. So then I decided that the best thing to do instead was to so people were saying, oh, this woman's a fraud and she spends all the money she earns on this obsession with cars. I don't know why. I've got a truck and I slept in my truck when I first moved to Wales for 2 weeks, and I slept in a tent in October in Wales as well. But apparently that I'm not really homeless because I had a bell tent. So go figure. This is what people have said. So that had all gone on. And then, so I basically went on Trustpilot, and to everybody's reviews, and on Facebook as well, to anybody that left something shitty, I went on and made quite sexual comments to them. So somebody had gone on and said, this woman's a fraud, and she takes people's money and she rips them off, but they hadn't really specified. So I went on and said, I'm really sorry that you're upset that the butt plug didn't fit. And obviously because of the nature of the product that you've bought from me, I can't give you a refund. And they got really angry. And then another one, it was like, I'm really sorry that our dinner date went badly. You know, it's not your fault that you didn't like the fact that I was trans. And I just went for it. I just absolutely went for it. And oh my God. And but it shut everyone up. And obviously what I was doing as well is, instead of just doing these things, I was then sharing that on Instagram and Facebook and going, this is the reply I've given to this dickhead. And I think people know that's what I'm like. So you then got half the people going, this is unprofessional, and the other half going, yeah, well done, like clapping, because it's like, how else are you going to deal with these dickheads that are just, and it's the same approach to veganism. I think that's how I am with vegans, with veganism. It's like, if somebody's going to come at me for the way I am, then I'm not going to take it lying down. I'm just going to have a go back. So it's been trolling. It's my favourite thing. I love trolling trolls. It's my favourite thing to do. So anyway, so all of that happened, and then we were offered some better land, and it was better land. So we moved again. So I say we because by then Matt had moved up, so I'd got someone sort of living on site and helping with things as well. So that was brilliant. So we moved. We only moved 15 miles down the road, but it was down in a valley. It was a beautiful 4-acre field. And the idea was, this really nice man, he was growing, turning it into an orchard. So he wanted a hand with the trees, and in return, we could keep our sanctuary there and we could put our caravan there and live there. So we very much were aware that we were living in a caravan without planning permission, because there's nowhere to live. And we're still kind of not in that situation now. We're in a house, but in West Wales, there is nowhere to live because there's so many second homes here. There's nowhere to rent. And we were on the waiting list for the council, and the council was saying, a year and a half. So you've got no other choice. Now, historically in this part of Wales, you could move here and live in a caravan and nobody would really say anything. There are hundreds of people living in caravans in fields around here. It's that kind of place. So we were like, it'll be okay. So we spoke to the neighbours. There were only 2 people opposite. They were happy with us being there. They were happy with the birds. They were really helpful, actually. So we were like, right, we'll be okay. We'll be great here. So it took another 12 weeks to move all the aviaries, all the birds, rebuild everything, set up, move our caravan, set up a mains water supply. We've got no electricity there still, so we're still on solar, and set all of the solar panels back up and do all of this. And you're just like, thank fuck, this is brilliant. So that was in the July. And the birds were there and they were happy and everything was great. And we had a little bit of dry weather and we started to get stuff done. And then I'd opened a shop, a physical shop in a place called Newcastle Emlyn. I got a little shop going and that was helping with money. And so we thought, everything's going well, everything's okay. And then I was just on the way to work one morning and this guy came and I was looking at him and I was like, oh God, he's from planning. And I thought he would come on and be like, are you living in this caravan? Get off. I thought that would be the worst thing. But it wasn't. He wasn't even bothered that we were living there, really. And he didn't ask that. What's happened is, for some reason, it's not just me it's happened to around here, but for some reason, Carmarthenshire Council decided to fly over all the agricultural land and they've seen the aviaries from above and didn't know what they were. And that's what he'd come to investigate. And I was like, oh, well, we don't need, they're temporary aviaries. They're not, they're weighted down, but they're not concreted in. And that's why we had to use those sort of aviaries out here, because we hadn't got planning. So I was like, right, they're temporary. They're called omelette. They're made out of like mesh, and they're like slot together like Meccano. So we don't need planning for them. And he said, oh no, it's not a planning issue. You can't have birds on agricultural land. I'm like, what? Anyway,
naturally on agricultural land.
Yeah, especially pigeons. Yeah. But because we don't eat them, we can't have them on agricultural land. So it was a change of use issue. And they wanted £35,000 for a change of use.
That's an insane amount of money for something that would naturally be there anyway.
Mm-hmm. And it affects nobody.
You're just giving them a little home.
Yeah, exactly. So to put this in context as well, I had, because of all the shit that I'd had after the storm, I had invited down the RSPCA inspector, and we'd had a guy called Keith Hogden, who is the chief wildlife inspector for the whole of Wales. He had come. And he'd given us a clean bill of health. He's like, everything's great. He'd actually used the word exemplary. He's like, this is all great. And he was very honest. He was like, I don't agree with disabled wood pigeons, and I don't agree with certain like disabled birds being kept. But our vet kind of trumps him, really, because our vet, they were all tagged, they're all signed off. All our paperwork was in place. He was happy with the hygiene. He was happy with the pens, everything. He was so pleased. He was with us for about 2.5 hours, and he was like, this is great. So you don't need a license to have this sort of sanctuary out here. But you do need to make sure you're doing the right thing, and that's why we were really happy that the RSPCA came down. And I don't necessarily respect the RSPCA, like they front red tractor, and I don't agree with that. And we actually had quite a heated debate while Keith was here about red, because of course he's not vegan. And one of the things he said was, well, I think these birds aren't having a happy, fulfilled life because they're disabled, even though you are giving them everything they need. And I can't have an issue because your vet signed them off. And I actually said to him, oh, right, okay, so it's one rule for these, but it's okay for you to walk into a factory farm where you've got 1,000 chickens in a tiny shed and they've got a square foot of space. That's okay, is it? And he was just like, I don't deal with them, I deal with wildlife. And I was like, right, okay. So a lot of the birds I've got here, about 70% of the birds I've got here are domestic birds. They've come from pigeon racing. So technically they are pets, they're domestic birds. So they do come under the same thing as chickens, but you have an issue with them having all this space and everything they need, but you don't have an issue with factory farmed hens. And he just couldn't answer. He was just like, I can't talk to you about that. It's bizarre. Anyway, nevertheless, we were sort of certified as much as we could be, but even with that, planning just came in and were like, no, you can't have these birds on this land. So then we were just stuffed. We were completely stuffed. And then, of course, then he said, oh, there's a caravan here. And I was like, oh, shit, here we go. And he said, are you living in there? And we were like, yeah. And he was really nice. He was a really nice guy. He was like, I can see you. He was lovely. I can't say anything about him. He was a really nice guy from the council. And he just sort of said, look, I can see what you're doing here is the best for these animals. And I know you've got nowhere to live, but you've got 3 months to move, all of it.
At this point, in your head, are you just like, why did I do pigeons?
Yeah.
Why is being a pigeon lady, or a pigeon sanctuary owner?
Why is this so hard?
Why is it so hard? Why have I just had to do this? Why have I dedicated my life to this?
Yeah. That goes back to that whole swimming thing where you just feel like you're doing the best you can do, and then somebody's constantly kicking you. Anyway, but then it's all right. It's all right from then on. So then we were looking for somewhere else to go, knowing that no matter where we move now, no matter what field we end up in, they're going to know. They're going to know because he was like, we need to know where you're putting these birds. This incredible lady called Maria just phoned me out the blue. Didn't know who it was, just had this call on my phone. You don't know me, but I run an equine sanctuary in a place called Talsarn, which is about 40 minutes up the road from you. Phone me back. You can move here. And I was like, what? She doesn't know. Like, I've never even heard of it. She's never, who's this lady? Like, she doesn't know who we are. We could be lunatics for all she knows. Like we probably are. Like, who is this woman? And I phoned her back and we had a 20-minute conversation, and it was a little bit like talking to myself. We're really similar. And I was just like, but then equally I was like, she's so, like, that's pure altruism, isn't it? Like, she was just so like, come up tomorrow, let's just see if we can help you out. We're a vegan sanctuary, you're a vegan sanctuary. I wish we'd heard about what, I told her about what had happened the year before. She was like, I wish I'd known, because we could have offered you this then. And she sort of said, we don't have a lot, but what we've got, we'll share. And that's exactly what they've done. So within 2 weeks, we'd started moving up there, and the whole sanctuary's up there now. It's called Herd on the Hill, and they are just amazing. It's this lady called Maria, and they're funded by Eddie West, who's a really well-known farrier. But he's not a farrier. They're both vegan. So he's not a farrier that puts shoes on horses. I think he did back in the days before he was vegan and he knew better, but he's basically learned over the years that there are better ways to look after horses' health. So what he does is trim the hooves to make them the right shape and to help the horse's physiology. And he's very well respected, and that's how they fund that sanctuary. But that's also how they've ended up with a lot of the horses up there, because it's places that he's gone to and he's like, oh, this horse needs help, and they can't give it, so he brings the horses back. So that's how their sanctuary started. They've also got pigs and sheep up there now, and chickens and ex-batteries, and they had some more chickens be dumped on them last week. So they're funded like that. So the idea now is that going forward, I will grow and grow and grow Little Green Pigeon as a community interest company, and we will help fund their sanctuary as well. But yeah, she's fantastic. They're absolutely amazing people. I don't see much of Eddie because he's always working, and he goes all over the country working. And he does loads of work for like sanctuaries up and down the country, horse sanctuaries. He's absolutely brilliant. But of course, Maria's there all the time. They've got like about 40 rescue animals, and she's always working, and she's brilliant. So even though we're about half an hour away now, because then this incredible lady who I'd got to know as a local shopkeeper in Newcastle, where my shop was, she found out that we were kind of double homeless, because we were already homeless and then we'd been evicted out of our caravan as well. So we were like getting to the stage where we were like, we're going to have to sleep in the truck. Like me and Matt and the 2 dogs, we're going to have to sleep in the truck. I don't know what else we're going to do. Like there's nowhere else nowhere for us. And she was being absolutely amazing. So the house that I'm sat in now is their bungalow that was empty. And I think they're going to move into it eventually, but they were like, right, you've probably got a good year there to get on your feet. So we do rent it from them, but at a really good cost. Really good. They've been so generous, and the generosity of people out here is incredible, absolutely incredible. And then, so it's amazing. So
everybody that you bumped into seems to have like a really good knock-on effect at some point.
Yeah.
Now that you're living in a place, and you've got like the other sanctuary to be in, and obviously the land that you had beforehand. Although there's been a kind of shitstorm along the way, everything is kind of leading up to obviously what you've got now, and they're all very settled. They're actually in a sanctuary alongside horses as well. So it's kind of like a combined sanctuary, I guess.
Yeah, it's really, really nice. It's just such a good vibe up there. It's lovely. And they're next to like Shetland ponies. So I'm there cleaning them out and looking after them. There's like a Shetland pony right against the aviary going, hello. And it's just like, it's fantastic. And we've had a massive storm. We had a huge storm out here. And again, this place is like right on the top of a hill, because in Wales, you're either in a valley or on a hill. Like there's no, I slept in the truck up there 2 nights. And the wind on the Met Office, and Maria, because she's lived there a long time now, they reckon it got up to about 75 at one point. But because it's on sand, and we've got the right structure now where we are, nothing moved. The birds were all absolutely fine. I slept up there anyway because I couldn't have come back here. We're about 25 minutes away here, and I wouldn't have slept. I'd just been so nervous. So I slept next to them in the truck, and it was great. Like they were absolutely fine. Everybody was safe. It was all secure. And that is down to Maria and her kindness, because if that storm had come in and we'd still been on the other land, I don't know what, they would have been dead. They would have been dead. And I got to be honest, if I'd still been in the caravan on the land, I probably would have been dead, because it was just flipping up. I've never known anything like it. It was horrendous. So, really, really grateful to Maria. She's just been absolutely amazing. And we get on really well. And we've got like projects coming up that we're working on. And it's really exciting. So it feels now like we're sort of clawing out the other side. And also I've physically moved the shop from Newcastle Emlyn to Aberavon, which is about 40 minutes up the coast. So we're now in like quite a visitor heavy town. The shop's twice the size. I've got a 6-year lease. I've painted it all ridiculous colours, and it's already busier than it was in February at the other shop last year. We're already taking more money for the sanctuary, and I think in the summer it's going to be insane. I'm slightly nervous about that. Like, because it's going to be completely insane when the tourists come back. So it's definitely, it feels like we've kind of gone through it, and then, you know, we're coming through the other side now. So it's brilliant. But you're totally right. The generosity and kindness of people here, West Wales is like, it's like, it's a little bit like the part of England I'm from, but like from the 80s. And I'm not suggesting that it's backwards in any way. It's not. Like, the technology's the same as it is anywhere else. But everything's just a slower pace. It doesn't feel like it. Like, okay, the Wi-Fi's crap. Like, I'm amazed this is running as well as it is. Like, the internet's appalling. Nobody's got mains gas. Everyone's on Cala gas or heating oil. You know, it's a different place. But, you know, and a lot of people out here are in these big stone cottages and they don't have central heating. Our nearest supermarket, like our nearest Tesco's, from here is an hour's drive. An hour's drive, not an hour's walk, an hour's drive. There are little, like, cost cutters. There's like little supermarkets, but there's no big supermarket. There's no B&Q. Like, all the things you take for granted when you've lived in towns and cities. And I was quite rural where I was before, but not like that. You know, like the nearest B&Q was a 20-minute drive away. Here it's an hour and a half to the nearest big, you know, hardware department centre, whatever you'd call them. So yeah, it's crackers. But it's so different, and people are just, everyone's in bed by like 8 o'clock at night. Like, everyone's in the houses. Nobody really drives around. And like, if you are driving around at night, especially me in a truck, if another truck comes the other way, they'll stop and wind the window down. And if it's like a local farmer and they see like a girl, I mean, obviously I'm a woman, but you know what I mean, girl in a truck, and they're like, "Are you all right, love? What are you doing out at this time of night?" And I'm like, "I'm driving home from work." And they're like, "Oh, I mean, it's 8:30. I'm like, "Yeah, I'm all right. It's fine." It's just really, but everyone's really friendly. So yeah, like, so as an example, in a typical me way, I had an accident in my truck about 5 months ago, where the wheel fell off. The wheel fell while I was driving.
It could only happen to you.
And it wasn't my fault. It wasn't my fault. I'd had new tyres. She'd just been reshoed, and they hadn't put the wheel on properly at the back. So there was a blame, and they were brilliant about it. The people that had done it, they were fantastic, because it could have been horrendous. Because the drop, I mean, the roads around here, the drops down some of the sides of the hills are just obscene. And luckily, it was the back left, and so the truck went that way instead of down the hill. But I ended up going in front of this massive oil tanker, and it was just a bit like, "Ah!" And while I was waiting for because it was completely, I mean, the wheel had just come off. It was horrendous. The truck was all those. So I was waiting for the AA to come out, and about 6 trucks, like the cars went past, okay, but about 6 of the trucks, like local farmers, stopped, and they're like, "You all right?" You know, and people are just so nice. They, you know, that it's just, everyone's so friendly. And there are so many vegans out here. So many vegans. It's incredible, absolutely incredible. But there's also a lot of vegetarians out here, and already I've made 7 of them vegan. So I'm like, this is really good, because they're so easy to manipulate to veganism. It's brilliant, because they know what they're doing, and they know what they just need a little bit of a nudge. So yeah, so it's brilliant. So all these horrible, shitty things have happened, but I feel like I've come home. It's fantastic. It's exactly where I should be out here. It's perfect.
That's amazing. At least now you've got a place that actually does feel like home, and it's not just kind of, you know, caravan moving around and just kind of not knowing what's happening from one day to the next without some kind of like health inspector coming down constantly and being like, you know, out you go.
Oh yeah. Yeah, we're really lucky. And you're right, it's just those connections that you make. It's really important to talk to people, because if I hadn't have chatted away to people, it wouldn't have happened. I don't mean that that sounds a bit what's the word, narcissistic. That's not the right word, but I don't mean like, "Oh, I've made this happen." But what I mean is, I think if you are transparent and you do tell people what's going on, they'll go, "Oh, round here anyway." They're like, "What can I do to help? What, you're in a shit situation, what can I do to help?" And if they can't help, they might know someone that can. And that's literally what's happened. It's people power. It really is. And I know a lot of people, particularly vegans, and particularly my background of like working with animals in veterinary practice, a lot of people go into that, they say, because they don't like people. And I absolutely don't I don't fall into that category. I really like people. I find people fascinating. But I also think that just being kind, I think that it can have a knock-on effect. So like, I'm generally, apart from when I'm trolling trolls, I'm kind to everybody that I meet, because you never know what they're going through. And I think it feels like you get it back out here. People are just generally really polite and really kind. We've not had any shit other than, like you say, from the council every time. So,
and I think that is the thing is when you are being so transparent and you are as friendly as you are, because also you talk everybody's socks off. Like even when we get on like the little networking meetings or things like that, they have to try and shut you up because you do talk, and you are just a very friendly, like wholesome person. There's like not an ounce of what's the word for it? Hate against you. I don't know anybody that doesn't love you.
I do. Really? Oh,
yeah.
no. Oh, God. I know shitloads of people that can't stand me. Oh, no. I could write you a list. They can't stand me and I love it.
I know one of the people. To be fair, I say that knowing that one of the people that does hate you is, I don't know if you call them a people, but they're the Daily Mail.
Yeah, they hate me. And the farmer that started all of that, he lives in North Wales. But I would love to get in touch with him and be like, hey, guess what? I live in Wales now, but I don't want to stir up that hornet's nest. But the Daily Mail hate me.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember that all happening in the news. Was the Daily Mail, and then it went
all of that.
It went to every other newspaper.
God, why did that start?
It's because you advertised for a vegan.
I advertise, and that's about to happen again because I'm about to advertise for a vegan employee again here. So, next drama.
To be fair, I think it was like, although you had all the bad press, it's that whole thing of any press is good press because it works out in your favor.
I love it. Well, yeah, but like I said, the more negative it is, the more I can use it because I can just absorb all that negativity because it genuinely. So, like, when I was saying a minute ago, like I feel like I'm swimming and people are pulling me down. That's because I've been repeatedly kicked, like financially and with time. But people, they don't drag, like actual people, like the more hateful they are, the more energy it gives me. I'm just more like, let's go. Like literally, I can sit there all night like this, just like having a go at people quite happily. So yeah, what had happened was I'd put an advert on Indeed, like a proper professional, because I do run a CIC. I am professional, believe it or not. So I put an advert out there on a job site to say that I wanted somebody, and it was to help with the website and to help with sales for the community interest company for Little Green Pigeon. And it said, I put what I needed, and I'd said must be vegan because we're a vegan company and those are our ethics, and we are covered legally with that. And I know the law, and I know that we're covered. It's covered in the same way as religion. And I didn't think anything more of it. And I had a couple of applications, a couple of vegetarians, and I'd have to say, I'm really sorry, but if you're transitioning to veganism, then yeah, absolutely come and talk to me because I can help you with your transition. And, and then I had a call. I was talking to somebody, my phone was ringing. I remember it because somebody was bringing an injured bird into me at the time, and I was chat. And I better get that because they've phoned a few times and it might be about an injured bird. So the guy went, and I listened to the answer message, and he said, "Oh, hi, it's Steve." I'm just making up a name. It's Steve Tootal from the Telegraph in London. And I was like, "What is this?" Because you get loads of sales calls when you run a business, don't you? So I was like, "Okay, what's he trying to sell me?" We'd like your comment on the story that's breaking in the Daily Mail about your sanctuary. So this was the London Telegraph, and I was like, what? So I phoned this guy back and I was like, hello, Steve Tablecloth, whatever your name is, like, what's all this? And he said, I want your comment on the story on the day. And I was like, listen, you said that in your message, but you need to explain this to me. I haven't got a clue. Like, I live in a cave. I listen to Radio 4, and other than that, I don't get any other content. So I was like, what are you going on about? And I went online, and it was already it was viral online all over because it started on the Daily Mail. The Sun had already got hold of it, and so this wasn't in like the printed newspapers, although I did end up in the Daily Mail print. But this was all online, and it was absolutely kicking off. And of course on Facebook, their vegan haters were out, and it had all been started by somebody had reported me saying that I was what's the word? discriminating because I was only employing vegans. And it just went for months. It went nuts, absolutely nuts. But there was a lot of negativity, but there was also so much positivity. And actually anything that was negative, I just, used to my advantage as much as I could, really. But also in the way that these things always go, they start off about the topic in hand and then they become very personal. So when they realise that they're not going to break you and neither are you going to shut up, they then become very personal. So then it was like people trying to get in touch with friends or past partners that I'd had. It was people snooping around the house and the property. It was people just making really nasty remarks about the way I look and the way I speak and just all sorts of things. And I think if you don't have self-confidence, it would be horrible. It would be like really horrible. But luckily I know I'm an idiot and I don't care what people think about me. So because of that, I was like, bring it on. Now, there was one point that got really, really personal. Like they were going on about the fact I was gay. So I put a picture of me and my ex-wife up and I was like, yeah, that's me. And then somebody had found a picture on my old Facebook from years ago of like when I did some modelling and I looked quite goth and I was like, yeah. So then I put pictures, like horrific pictures, like of like being underwear. So I was like, I'm going to out this before you do, because I don't do anything that I regret. Because my thing has always been never take a bad picture of yourself. If you're going to send someone a dirty selfie, make sure you look good. Because then if it ever gets publicised, at least you can go, yeah, my arse looks great in that picture. So, so yeah, I mean, do what you like as long as you make yourself look all right. You won't regret. Or you don't care, a bit of either way. So one of the most things that I think this one comment came up over and over again. Somebody had said like, oh, she's vegan and she's got a face like a walrus. So I had it printed on a t-shirt, which I wore quite a lot. And it was like, I've got a face. It just had a big arrow pointed at the face and it just said face like a walrus all over my tits. And it just, and they just got so angry. Oh my days, they got so angry. And then there was these Welsh celebrities getting involved and they were all going, fucking vegans. And I was just like, yay. But we had so many donations to the sanctuary and it gave us, I think our TikTok went from something like 2,000 followers. We've now got just close under, we had, and at the time it went up to like 5,000 followers overnight on TikTok. And Instagram still, we're only on about like 3,000 and a bit thousand followers. But the website hits just went through the roof. And I was getting donations and orders and all sorts of stuff. So it did loads and loads of good. I think it's just how you handle it, isn't it? But I can understand, like, it did give me a tiny, tiny glimpse of what it must be like to if you've got that all the time. I can totally understand how it would be exhausting. But for those couple of months for me, it was brilliant. And the best bit was there was this woman in Texas had the story and she sent me a vile email, horrible email, absolutely horrible. And she was somebody who kept chickens, backyard chickens. And she sent me a really aggressive email, which I replied to with kindness and saying, well, they haven't quite got the story right, but okay, here's my take on it. And she went vegan.
Oh, broken.
There was an exchange that went backwards and forwards and I kept in touch with her for weeks and weeks and weeks. And in the end, she was like, do you know what? Actually, you're right. I hadn't looked at it like that. Like, I thought that keeping backyard chickens was okay because my chickens are happy and I sell the eggs and they're healthy. But you're right. Like, I buy female hens. Where are all the male hens? And she didn't know anything about, the ignorance is unbelievable. So she didn't know anything about the male chicks being ground up and, and unwanted. And so when we'd gone into all of that, like calmly and peacefully over emails backwards and forwards, she went vegan, which was absolutely bonkers. And there was quite a lot of that. So, yeah.
I think when it comes, especially when it comes to the whole male chick thing, people don't know because people just see chickens and assume that they're just wandering around with males as well. But there's literally no males. Apart from to maybe fertilize them once in a while to make more. There's only a few really kept around. Most of them, they're born and into a macerated 2 minutes later.
Yeah, it's absolutely dreadful, isn't it? I think I find it absolutely bizarre that in this day and age, with the internet, people can still be ignorant to it, but they can. And I think and let's face it, we know why. It's because it's paid for by meat and dairy to keep that information quiet. It is, and that's why I think it's really important for vegans. Like, you don't have to be out on the street with a placard just talking to people. So there's a local lady that I've got chatting to. We've just bumped into each other on the beach a couple of times because I live right next to the beach now, walking our dogs. And she came into the shop, the new shop, about 3 days ago. And I looked at her and I thought, oh, she's familiar. And she kind of did the same. And we were like, oh, you're Daisy's mum. And she was like, oh, you're Noggy's mum. And I was like, oh, brilliant, blah, 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 chat. And she said, oh, right, okay, that's right. I remember you had a pigeon on your top. I think I got my work hoodie on, which got a pigeon on the front. She was like, yeah, this makes sense now. Chat. Anyway, she bought a couple of things and said, nice to see you. And out she went. And yesterday, she might not see this. She might see it, but I don't think she'd mind. I bumped into her on the beach again yesterday. And I said, oh, it was really nice to see you in the shop. Thanks for your support. And she said, oh, do you know what? I only work 3 days a week. Do you ever need any volunteers? And I said, oh, yeah, we really could do with some volunteers at the sanctuary and in the shop. But you have to be vegan. Are you vegan? And her face kind of dropped. But it was like you know, when you look at someone and think, oh, there's more going on than just like, no, I'm disappointed about the sanctuary. And I was like, are you okay? And she went, do you know what? She said, no, I'm not. And she went, I was vegetarian for 20 years ago. I think she's about 5 years older than me. So I'm like 50. I think she's about 55. And she said, I was vegetarian for 20 years. And then I met my husband. And she said, and I used to go out, like I was the one in the 80s with a placard saying fur is murder and meat is murder and blah, blah, blah. And she said, and then I met my husband and I just kind of lost my way and he ate meat and I just kind of got into the habit of eating meat again and dairy and eggs I never gave up. And she said, and moving out here, there are so many vegetarians. I have been thinking recently that I ought to. And now the partner that she's with now, she thinks has got a lactose intolerance. So she was talking about, well, you know, maybe we should look at veganism. And it was just sort of saying to her, so it was just a conversation on the beach, walking the dogs about, well, you know, maybe if you're looking at going vegan, like as in embracing the lifestyle, not just cutting out food, I'm talking about proper veganism, then you could come and we can help you. Like Matt and I, we're both vegan. We're surrounded by vegans. A lot of the people that come into the shop are vegan and a lot of the people I buy products from have become my friends and they're vegan. And there's a definite little community here. And if you can come into that community. And she was like, oh, well, since I've moved here, I haven't got many friends. I've only been here 18 months. I'm like, well, that's amazing because when you're with like-minded people, it's easy. You know, that's your first bit of friendship, isn't it? You just got to have that in common. So straight away, so we're going to meet up next week and talk about recipes and a few different things. And yeah, straight away, it's just making that connection, isn't it? And just having those conversations with people. That's your activism. That's absolutely, because I can't risk going out sabbing or going out protesting, because if I get arrested, there's no one to look after the birds. I can't do it as much as I would like to, because I'm always up for a bit of a fight. I'd love to do that, but I can't do that because if I get arrested or Matt gets arrested, we're screwed and the birds are screwed. So your activism has to be another way. And I know we run a vegan shop, but even so, to me, that's not enough. But talking to people and really listening, and she just needed someone to listen to her, and she just talked and talked and talked. And I actually kept quiet because I am good at that sometimes. And she talked and talked and I just listened. And then by the end of the conversation, she was basically going vegan and like, oh yeah, I should do it. Anyway, but the reason I started blathering on about this is something that you said was that about the male chicks and people don't know. She said, well, at one point, all the meat I ate was organic. So that's better, isn't it? And I was just like, oh, that's even worse. And she said, why? And I'm like, because organically raised animals, they're not allowed the drugs that help the health of them, so they're actually, they suffer more. And she was just like, what do you mean? And I said, well, they're not allowed the painkillers and the antibiotics that really, they should be having. I mean, they shouldn't be having, but you know what I mean, like to help them feel better, because it's organic and you can't put that into the meat. And she was just like, oh my god, she was horrified. So, and I'm like, it's just all greenwashing. It's just all, you believe what you want, don't you?
Yeah, there is a lot of greenwashing, and especially, weirdly enough, speaking about greenwashing, I saw it's an article yesterday. Germany, I think it's Germany, or that part of Europe. There's a few other countries around that have banned greenwashing, so nobody can say ethical or whatever the situation is, even with like clothing and stuff like that.
Never really.
So they banned the greenwashing term, so they physically, unless they can prove that it is actually what it says it is, they're not allowed to use those greenwashing terms, kind of like
that's
environmental friendly or anything like that. So they've kind of
what would
fill out.
That's amazing.
Yeah, no, it was incredible, and I don't know how it's going to work in terms of like obviously food. I know how it's going to work with clothing, and you know your kind of like dishwasher tabs where like, oh, this is more environmentally friendly, unless you can prove it over like a certain. I think there's a scale. Once you can prove it, then you can be like, yeah, this is actually you can put that on your product. However, there's a scales, and you have to be able to hit that top of the scale to actually have the. Be able to say it in your marketing or on your products. So I think they're moving forward.
That's brilliant. That's absolutely brilliant. But also interesting because who is going to decide that? Because governments can't decide what's ethical and sustainable now, can they? So how are they going to? That's interesting.
Yeah, I think to be fair, I think the reason governments can't decide is because they are backed and paid off by these big industries. You got like Red Tractor, for instance. You got people like RSPCA that are meant to be out there helping animals, but at the same time killing animals. They're like, oh, we want to help all animals. However, you can keep that farm full of like 10,000 chickens. So I don't know who really. Or how that's going to work, but I feel like they're more slightly environmentally conscious in Europe than in England.
Yeah, hopefully.
It was England.
Oh, no, the government is just a shit show, isn't it, at the moment with everything? We've got no chance at the moment with that. That's a brilliant step forward, though.
Yeah, when I saw that, I was like, that's something worth like thinking about, especially like in other countries as well, not just kind of. Whatever. I say it was Germany. I'm pretty sure it was Germany, or it was a country around there. But I'll have to find it later and link that in the show notes as well.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing.
It was.
Isn't it? It's so exciting. Like if I think back to when I first went vegetarian and cruelty free, I was 8. So that was what, like 1980. 1982, something like that. I can't work that out in my head. It was the early 80s, and I would never have thought then that we would have a world that was moving the way it is now. And I know there's still an awful lot to do, but I mean, of course, it's a completely different world now. But back then, like what's funny is there was no hatred for vegetarians back then. You were seen as a weirdo. But there was no hatred. And I know I was a kid, but I'm talking about like when I was a teenager and when I was a young adult. There was no hatred for vegetarians. You were just seen as a hippie, like as a weirdo. The hatred now is mind-blowing. But what I absolutely love now is it's like when people go, vegetarians, like you won't make it vegan, so you won't make a difference. And you being vegan, that's not going to make any difference. And you're like, well, okay, well, first of all the animals that haven't suffered on my watch this year, that's a lot of animals. But also, look at how many vegans there are now. I think the report came up, it was on the BBC today, and it said there was there was another report on the BBC, but there was on Plant-Based News, and it said that they reckon that this February now there's a million more vegans.
Yeah, a million more. I saw that this morning. So yeah, we are making a change slowly and gradually. But like I don't think there was ever a day when I thought I'd see a vegan burger at McDonald's or KFC doing a vegan option.
Yeah.
Like Burger King in Leicester Square turning completely vegan. And like the amount of shops and restaurants, even over here, there's still some work to do in Australia. However, like every restaurant, par a few, have vegan options or an array of vegan options. Even if you think back in the UK, Miller and Carter, the steakhouse, have a vegan steak on
Do they really? Do they really?
They do.
I can't think of anywhere worse to eat, but yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I'd want to be eating in Miller and Carter.
No.
However, they have a vegan steak on the menu.
That's amazing.
As well as I think it might be one of the 3D printed.
Oh really?
Steaks. Yeah.
Right. Bloody hell.
I keep seeing those everywhere.
How do you feel about those?
To be fair,
I know you don't eat a lot of processed food, like we don't eat a lot of processed food, but
so I think for people looking to convert or reduce meat consumption, then great idea. Great. Because I don't think any animal, like they've taken like a DNA sample from like a cow or a chicken. I don't know what that's involved in, but I assume it's just taking like a little prick, I guess.
No. So apparently, yeah. So to get that, you need it from the liver, I believe. This is what one of my veterinary friends was telling me, who's vegan. So apparently, and I might have this wrong, but this is what the guidance from the Royal Veterinary College was. You need it from a liver, so it needs to be a deep needle. So they anaesthetise the animal and then they euthanize the animal on the table. So it's still, so that's the donor animal. So there's still a level of cruelty to that animal. But I think as time goes on, that will probably change. And I think as time goes on, they'll be able to synthesise that. I don't think that they'll need. So I guess then you just look at the thing and think, well, that's one animal.
That's where I'm kind of thinking, like, is one animal better than, you know, a few 100 million that are being killed like month? And I would say yes, that's probably that's a more sustainable option. It's not the best option, and I don't think and I think yesterday, I mentioned yesterday that no form of agriculture is completely cruelty free. So yes, if there was a first cow, a first chicken, a first pig, but in the long run, there's none. Then I feel like that's a better option. There's also they run with that and get rid of like the cholesterol and get rid of like, you know, the unhealthy fats, and you kind of make it healthy without the rest of it. And I was like, that's great for people converting. I think for me personally, I don't think I would eat it. Mainly because I've moved myself so far away from that, and I eat, you know, majority whole foods. Yes, I will have like, you know, some like fake meats once in a while, but I'm okay with what I've got. I don't need a like ultra realistic piece of steak, because I don't know if I ever really, you know, enjoyed steak in the first place. I think it's one of those things
I've never eaten one. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. They're not that great. People will hype them on. Like, people will hype it. But I don't think it's that great.
No. Like, literally, the only meat I remember, because I was so young when I went veggie, the only meat I remember the taste of is sausage. And that's not really meat, is it? That's like squished up in a
paste. Yeah.
So I don't really remember it. So like texture. So but I totally get it. So I had Percy, my son, was down visiting, and he brought some burgers. And I can't remember the name. Was it Meatless Farms, or what's the one? Beyond, it might be Beyond Burger. It was something, and I bit into it, and I was just like, ooh, and I couldn't tell you why I didn't like it. I was just like, I just don't like it. And he sort of said, I think it's because I think it tastes a bit meaty. And one of his friends was here who is vegetarian, not vegan, but remembers meat, and was like, oh yeah, it's because it tastes like meat. And I was just like, is that why I don't like it? It was just so alien. The whole texture was so alien. I couldn't eat it. I was just like, oh, really weird.
Beyond the burgers, especially over here, they don't have them in the UK, the Impossible Burgers. Whenever you go to a restaurant, and if it's not a vegan restaurant, and you get an Impossible Burger here, you do question.
Oh, really?
You do question if you've ate the wrong one, because sometimes they do go like, you know, brown on the outside, pink on the inside, and you can make them like red.
Oh God, really?
And also when you put them in the pan, they do also bleed, because they put like a beetroot juice in there, and it kind of comes out bloody. And I'm like, I'm not a huge fan of it. However, like what I do have, I'm happy with tofu and tempeh, to be fair.
Oh, we had the best. Percy found me the best tofu dish ever. I love it, and we've had it tonight. We've had it twice this week actually. With like shredded tofu and bit of soy sauce, and what else goes on it? Oh, it's a girl on TikTok. Is she German? I might have just completely.
Oh, is this Green Fit wine?
No, Maya something. Maya.
Yeah, Maya. Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah, Maya.
Oh, it's so good. So I really enjoy it. We've had it like twice this week because I've got a block of tofu. It's just it's just brilliant.
Last week we shred it in a cheese grater.
That's it.
You like make it. Yeah, I saw that.
Honestly, if you've not done it, it's totally worth it. It's really good. Yeah, really, really good. And it's so easy. I mean, you know, I like cooking, but for me, I did it. It was so easy, even for me. Like,
I'm surprised you actually ate anything apart from peas.
well, peas in champagne, dear. Peas in champagne.
That was my hell with you for at least 6 months of my life.
You loved it. Oh God! I know. I forgot about that. I'm so sorry.
So just for context on everybody listening, that Mill who was one of my clients at one point, and when we talk about fussy eaters, Sue may be the fussiest eater who doesn't like anything.
But it's not just that. It's just that I can't be arsed. I don't like cooking, and food is fuel to me. So I'm not. Okay, so I just mentioned that Maya thing that I got excited about. I don't get excited about food really normally, but that was exciting because it was quite nice. But mostly the reason I liked it is because it tasted really nice and it took me like 20 minutes to do. That's why I liked it. But yeah, so I've got a fructose intolerance, and I've now found out. Well, we kind of found out through that I couldn't tolerate mushrooms either. So to be fair, and I have to have low fibre as well. So I am a fussy eater, but it's not just because of. I don't like bananas.
Don't like bananas, don't like mushrooms, your favourite food is peas, and we'll happily eat just a bowl of peas instead.
Yeah, peas. What's wrong with peas? Nothing wrong with eating peas. Protein, nutrient, it's fine. Oh, you made me eat one of the dishes I threw up one morning. What was it you made me eat? I had to soak it overnight, and it was like tadpoles.
Oh, chia seed pudding.
Oh, chia, even the word. Oh, no. Chia it's like tadpoles. It's the most. Oh. No. Oh, no. I just got, no. Just no. Like,
once you got past the initial things that you didn't like, you smashed it.
It did. It was brilliant. It was. You are a genius. It was absolutely brilliant. It was absolutely. Do you know what? Like, in all honesty, that was about. I think you finished working with me about 6 months before all the shit hit the fan and I had to move, and I was so fit and healthy because I was reasonably fit and healthy before. I've always looked after myself, but the reason that I asked you to help me was just because I felt like I could be better. I could feel I already felt okay, but I just thought, do you know what? I could feel healthier. And I just wanted to make sure that I was getting all the nutrients. And what you did with those like 3 meals a day, and like telling me what I had to buy, it was so easy. It was so easy because literally you gave me a list of everything I had to buy for the week. And I hate food. I hate any form of shopping. I'm crap at shopping. I hate it. But to be able to go food shopping and go, right, what have I got to buy this week? This. And quite often at the end of the week, I'd still have stuff left that I could carry into the next week. So it was quite economical as well then. Completely whole food. But also just the fact that it was completely tailored to me. It was fantastic. But it wasn't just me eating it. It was like everyone in the household eating it and they all loved it. And it was like there was proper satiety as well. It was brilliant. And I honestly believe that is what's helped me get through this without completely physically falling to bits. Because at the moment, I'm not at my peak. I'm not eating, but I'm still trying to go back. I'm looking up there because that's where they all are. I've still got all the recipes that you sent me in a folder up there. And I still go back to them because, but also you taught me to cook things like things that I'd never cooked before. That are really easy, that things I wouldn't have thought about, especially with like beans and stuff, like black beans and different bits. I would never have thought of doing that sort of thing, like on toast in the morning. I would never have thought of doing it before you did that. So it was absolutely brilliant. It totally has changed the way I eat. And I've been vegan like 15 years, but it's just completely changed the way I eat and for the better. Just absolutely brilliant. Can't thank you enough for that. And I genuinely believe that got me through the last 18 months shitstorm. Because I hit it running literally because I was so fit and so strong and so healthy when I had to move and I was living on that fucking hill on my own at -9 in a caravan with no heating and moving bales of hay on my own. that was because you'd got me to the stage where I was so fit and healthy. So yeah, thank you.
Oh, thank you. That's probably the best testimonial I think I've ever had.
If you're going to move to a hill with no electricity or running water and no heating, make sure you work with Callum for 6 months. So you're at your peak.
Yeah, but I think
I'm being serious. I'm being. Hey?
I was about to say, I think with you, I think it was very much trial and error on what you were eating, and then once we figured out what you actually liked and what you didn't, so not chia seed pudding, that you just kind of went full in and smashed.
No bananas.
No, yeah,
no
literally,
bananas, no chia,
no bananas, no mushrooms, lower fibre, and
very few tomatoes, few aubergines,
and add peas whenever you want.
Peas to every, yeah, you did. I think in the end you said, look, all of these dishes, you can add peas to them. I was like, can I have peas for breakfast? And you were like, yeah, let's do you a pea recipe for breakfast. And you did. I was like, this is amazing, I have peas for breakfast. I fucking love peas. The night after that festival, because I didn't drink or eat all day, did I? I was just running around like a dizzy arse. And then somebody, I can't remember who opened the Prosecco, and I was like, give me that Prosecco. And I can't even remember what food I'd done for the evening for like the after party, but I'd done some more food for us lot, hadn't I, when everyone else had gone. And I remember walking around with, I think it was still jacket potatoes. I think there was still a million potatoes. And I remember walking around with a great big bowl like this, full of peas, serving them to people. And then what had happened is, because I was just carrying a glass of Prosecco, which then turned into a bottle of Prosecco because I was topping everyone up, I ended up swigging out because no one else was drinking really, apart from me, you, and about 2 other people, because they were either driving home or they were teetotal. So I was like, me and Callum are drinking this Prosecco. And about 4 bottles got opened. And in the end, I was so pissed that the Prosecco was in the peas. So then I was just drinking the Prosecco peas with a spoon. It was horrendous. I don't remember going to bed. It was horrendous. It was absolutely. Oh my god!
I do remember the Prosecco peas, but I think in the end it was just me. Well, also the next morning we still had to eat jacket potatoes because there was constant jacket potatoes. So yeah. I cooked breakfast
you and me and Queen Bee eating jacket potatoes and tofu.
Yeah, scrambled tofu and jacket potatoes for breakfast. I was like,
I think I was eating jacket potatoes for about 4 days. So I was like, we will not waste food in this house.
Yeah, where they've been left overnight as well, and that heat was still coming from that giant barbecue. They were like,
oh god, yeah,
I've ever had as well.
Yeah,
they didn't burn; they went softer and softer, and like, amazing.
They were lovely. They were really nice. Also, there was like 6 dogs with all the dogs that were there. There were about with like Jen's dogs and my dogs and Ian's dogs. There's about 6 dogs, and they were all just like jacket potatoes for the dogs. They loved it. It was brilliant. It was such a good day that was. There is talk of doing that here, but it's like, right, let's get on our feet a little bit first. We do another festival.
Because I think last time I flew back from, where was I? I was in Mexico beforehand. And I know,
yeah, you flew all the way back. I was like, yeah, it's brilliant. It was really good.
So yeah. No, if you ever do another one, I will come and visit again because it was
fly out to Wales.
As long as there's jacket potatoes.
Yeah, that'll be a million. I'll put 10 in a bowl just for you. I'll cook them 2 days before and just keep them warm because that's how you like them. And then peas in Prosecco.
Yeah,
oh my god, potatoes. It was really good. I was so grateful you came to do that. It was such a good talk that you did. It was brilliant.
No, I really enjoyed that, and I think it was like the drive up there. To be fair, I left quite early because I was like, this is going to be hell because I felt like it's very rural, and then I got there. It's like this is the easiest journey. You made out that it was going to be the hardest journey, the hardest place to find, and I literally 2 hours. 2 hours.
Yeah.
I was there. I was like, oh, well, this was hard.
Yeah, well, you haven't visited me out here. It's proper rural out here. I thought I was rural there, but oh my days! Actually, well, we're kind of back in a little village now, so it's not so bad. But where we were last year, geez, it's like 20 minutes to the nearest house, just in this field. It just field, it's bonkers. But yeah, you'd need better directions to get out here.
Yeah. No, I've only ever been to Wales a few times. And that's only ever been to somewhere like Snowdon or somewhere like that. It's never been anywhere else apart from, and that's quite easy to get to. There's road signs everywhere, and it's kind of like it's a very straightforward path. Whereas the rest of Wales, I feel like everywhere you go, you're like in a tiny little town, or you're like in a little valley with nothing going on.
Yeah, it is. It is like that.
And it's very hard to get lost when the road signs are like 1,000 letters long.
Yeah, well, we've started trying to learn. We're learning like on Duolingo because it's free. We're learning about 4 new words a day, and it's quite a complicated language, but we're sort of getting there. I think it's only fair because so I think certainly I think in all Wales they're like this, but certainly in this part there are an awful lot of Welsh speakers. Like at least 2 or 3 people every day that come in the shop are Welsh speakers, and they will come in and speak to me in Welsh, and I'm just sort of going, oh, really sorry, I don't speak Welsh, and they're absolutely fine about it. But I just make sure that I get like my morning greetings and hello, goodbye, and thank you, and always doing Welsh. It's a beautiful language, but yeah, very confusing.
Hello in Welsh. I'm going to text
Shumi. In Welsh, Shumi. And in so in the morning, bore da is good morning. Prynhawn da, good afternoon. Nos da, good evening.
Oh, yeah. That's
it's
not
nice.
too.
It's a beautiful language. Yeah, no, it's beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah, I think when people see like the road signs, that's when people are like, "Well, I could never learn that," because it's
a different alphabet.
Yeah, completely.
Yeah,
it's just very. I saw a newsreader once reading out like I think it's the longest Welsh sign in the world, and I don't know what he was saying and whether he was saying it right, but I was like, yeah, it could be.
Yeah, that's in North Wales, near where Percy lives. Yeah. Yeah. My granddad was Welsh, and he used to try and get us to learn. I know it's I will fuck it up, but it's something like Llanfair Gingeth go Gereth, Llantysillian, something go, and it just means the church by the stream, in the river, in the village, and that's how everything is described around here. So like I think Abereron. So I think Abereron, where we are now, is Aber meaning on the river, and Aeron is the river. So that's literally what it means. So they just describe everything, but this is that place, and I suppose that's what English is really. It's just that it's slightly different. But yeah, it's fantastic language. It's absolutely amazing, but it's very difficult. Very difficult for me, anyway.
Yeah, I think that's all like language, because I've been trying to learn Spanish when I was over, and that was hard, especially when you've reached an age where you don't take in things as much.
Mm-hmm.
When trying to learn Spanish, and like I went on Duolingo, got there, and your first lesson was like talking about someone eating apples. I'm like, I'm not going to use this. I want something I'm to use. Which actually, weirdly enough, did come in handy, like 3 months down the line. In a really random situation where a car broke down and the taxi driver was like worrying, and I only had apples. I was like,
no way! So you got to use your Duolingo.
Like, this is the only time this is ever going to come in handy.
Thanks, Duolingo. How'd you say it? Can you remember it?
Oh yeah, so it was like common manzana, so that means eats apples or eat apples. But was it like I think the first lesson was Juan, and I was like, his name? It could be Juan. I don't know what it is. If it was Juan, it would have been amazing. It just would have been my first lesson of Duolingo.
That's brilliant. I love that. Do they? I guess they don't find you difficult to understand where you are now, but you do speak quite quickly.
So they over here, I find, depending what state of Australia they're from, I can find them hard to understand.
Right.
Queenslanders, a lot of the time, I have no idea what they're saying.
No way, really?
They're very it's a very strong accent, and they kind of cut down all the words, and I'm like, I don't know what you're saying.
I love that.
Over here, I don't think any of them have an issue with me because they're all quite fast speakers as well. So I think we're all kind of the same, apart from they've got an accent. And to be fair to them, I have an accent, but to me, I don't have any. But yeah, depending on what state, I'm in New South Wales, so there's a lot of English and Irish here. So wherever you go, I feel like they're kind of used to everybody.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Whereas, more Perth area or Western Australia or Queensland, although there's a lot of English backpackers, I feel like, they're harder for me to understand, and I think they may have an issue with me as well. Just talking, but I think
not just an issue in general. Like, hey, met Callum, I've got a real issue with that guy.
I do have quite a few Aussies that do have an issue with me, mainly because of not that I've ever met them, but the same as you being trolled. I get trolled on a regular about nutrition, and I'm like, okay, cool. But that's the same. And now that a lot of my content now goes more out to Australia wise instead of England wise, I get a lot of people because over here they farm different species of animals instead of what we farm back in England.
I guess they do.
Kangaroos and crocodiles and things like that.
And
I don't overly know the nutritional basis of a kangaroo, but I know it's going to be the same as any kind of cow or anything else. But there's a lot of arguments about that I get online, but
yeah, gosh, I never even thought about that. Do they have kangaroo farms then?
Yeah, kangaroo farms. They have crocodile farms. I don't know if I've never seen I don't think they eat wallabies, but it wouldn't surprise me. But yeah, kangaroo farms, and I'm just trying to think if there's anything else. I think it's really kangaroos, and once in a while you get alligator or crocodile.
Crazy, isn't it? I just can't imagine a kangaroo farm. They're just such aggressive animals. It's insane, isn't it? There's that argument that's used by a lot of vegans here, which you can kind of say is, well, why do we farm the animals we farm? And it's because they're docile and they don't cause us problems. And then you look at the Australians and farming fucking kangaroos. It's like, oh my god.
Oh, also, it's not
disembowel you.
As well, ostriches, and they're also lethal.
Oh, they're horrendous.
It's either ostrich or an emu, one of the two.
Emu.
One, they're both aggressive things.
Yeah.
But I feel like what was the thing is, when it comes to farming and farming practices, it was more about what was on that island or where we are, what was easily farmed at that point. So in England it is cows, pigs, chickens, sheep, because they were readily available. Over here I don't think they had many of those things. They had kangaroos, they had crocodiles, they had emus. So obviously, and then introducing over chickens and other things. So it's just every country has its different farming practices because of what was available at that time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Years ago. So it's just very good. It's weird when you see these different cultures, especially when you go to things China or Thailand. They're eating literally everything. There's snake. I wouldn't want to eat snake over here, mainly because those things are trying to attack me constantly. And I don't trust anything that I don't trust anything that's sausage shaped and can try to kill me with just poison.
That's a statement. I don't trust anything that's sausage shaped. That needs to go on your website.
Right, I am gonna round this off in a second, but before you go, I do have one last question for you. Not that I think I've actually asked you a question this whole entire time. I think we're just talked. So, I already think I know your answer to this as well. So you've come back from a long day. You are feeling, tired, run down, and you need something quick and healthy to eat. It doesn't even need to be healthy. Just your go-to meal. That I knew it. Just a bag of eggs.
Yeah, because you just put them in the microwave 3 minutes, bosh, bit of butter. It's not really healthy though, is it? No, do you know what? No, actually, do you know what? Scrambled tofu. I like, actually, because that takes 5 minutes with peas.
See, I was fully.
Is that what you thought I was going to say? Peas.
I was like, it's going to be peas. It's going to be peas. To be fair, if you were just living on peas as well, I feel like that'd be a very cheap life as well, because that's so cheap to like a bag.
These are brilliant.
Yeah.
And they're frozen, so you know you don't. They just put them in. You don't worry. When I was living in the caravan, it was a nightmare because I didn't have a freezer.
No, so you just had to buy them from a shop and eat them straight.
Buy them and eat the whole bag. It was awful. Just put the whole bag in a pan. Didn't have a microwave either, so it was just a pan, whole peas in a pan. Yeah. So I did get into a little bit of an addiction of mushy peas then, though, because you can just eat them straight out the tin.
I mean, at least it wasn't heroin. There could have been worse addiction.
Yeah. Have you seen the woman in that caravan? She's addicted. She's always like this. Blah, blah, what she do? Just eat peas. Oh, great.
Shooting up those peas in the morning.
Yeah, no, I haven't got to the stage where I'm putting them up my nostrils, but you know, never know. That might be next year.
When times get tougher.
Yeah. Oh God, I do love peas. No, I've cut back. My pea addiction isn't as strong as it used to be. I've cut back a little bit on peas.
Oh, that's a shame. You're putting farmers out of business, you are.
Pea farmers love me. No, genuinely, I think that my go-to meal now is scrambled tofu. I think because I've got it sorted. I know exactly what I'm doing with it, and I've got it sorted after all these years. Finally,
yeah, it's only taken a while.
It's only taken 15 years. Oh God!
Right, I am going to let you go, but
Okay.
Where can we find you?
You can find me on Instagram and TikTok and Facebook, and it's just at Little Green Pigeon. And the website is littlegreenpigeon.co.uk. And that's about it, I think.
Perfect.
Is that where you can find me? I think so.